All right, welcome back everybody. What we are doing in this video is we are going to be talking about Firebase and N8N. In particular, what we're going to go over is calling into your N8N webhooks in a much more secure manner than what is typically kind of demoed out there. Like, hey, here's a URL, it's a webhook, just call it and everything will work. Yeah, but everything's pretty vulnerable. So we're going to be looking at some, potential option using AppCheck, reCAPTCHA attestation from within the Firebase ecosystem. So with that, when we're looking at our actual integration, this is pretty much what it's going to look like, right? We've got the our web page, which is obviously our client. It's going to go through AppCheck, which is part of the Firebase infrastructure, and it's going to call out to Firebase function, which is going to be callable rather than an on request. And then from there, we're going to look at that function actually calling our N8N webhook. Now, all of that being said, this doesn't really secure our N8N webhook by itself. Now it's put behind a little bit more, I guess, obscurity from not putting, the webhook's URL onto our client. Instead, we're putting it into a function, but that doesn't do anything for real security at all. So here we're also going to be talking about using a JWT token from our Firebase function and working with our N8N webhook in this manner. So as we're looking at this, we have a lot more layers of security in place. Now, really, if you're kind of asking, what is AppCheck with the attestation, what is that exactly? Well, essentially what it allows the function to do is make certain that the client is verifiable. And what do I mean by that? So the AppCheck infrastructure basically says the client is who they say they are. It's a URL, it's a web page at a given URL, or it could be a mobile app that has a certain identifier on it, a few other things, right? But if you have free-form text as an example on a web page, that AppCheck doesn't verify that there aren't any script tags or anything else in the free-form text. It's just saying that the request is being made from the legitimate endpoint. That's all that it's saying, right? And so that helps you prevent, more intensive attacks, somebody just bombarding your calls from, a random URL. Helps you with some, pings of death, DDoS, things along those lines. But it doesn't do anything to verify the actual package coming over. It just means that the client is who they say they are. Whatever data they put in there, that's a completely different ballgame, right? So that's what I mean by it asserts that the client is verifiable. So therefore the function will execute if it's a verified or verifiable client, but that execution, part of that execution needs to be verifying the data package, okay? Now, a lot of people might think, well, you know what? I don't understand why all of this is in here. All I'm gonna do is anytime somebody wants to send something to my function, I'm going to make certain that, they're logged in. They have a valid user ID, whatever it may be. And that's absolutely, a great point. However, what we might want to consider as well is, let's say that we have a form for new clients to fill out or sign up for, potentially sign up for one of our seminars or something along those lines. But it needs to be a light touch point where just because you want to send me information about, hey, I'd like to set up a meeting with you next week, doesn't mean necessarily they're going to come in and create a whole new account and go through, that whole series of steps just to send you a meeting request, right? And so you don't want to lose clients that way either. Or there may be a million and one other use cases. So when you're talking about having a avenue for folks to use your web page or mobile app, whatever it may be, and still communicate with you, but you still want that layer of security in there. This again is where another use case for AppCheck. But regardless, if you do have clients that are, setting up accounts, by all means, heck yeah. But it's still a good idea to use AppCheck, right? It's just another layer of security, and that's never necessarily a bad thing. So I did want to kind of bring that up. Now, when we are looking at the AppCheck, which is obviously part of the Firebase infrastructure, we're going to be calling into our functions, but there's a series of clients that we could potentially use to call into AppCheck, right? It could be our web page, it could be our mobile apps, whatever it may be. And each one of these clients uses a different attestation provider, right? So when you say, what is an attestation provider, right? For web pages, reCAPTCHA is one of them. If you are developing something on Android, it's going to be the Google Play Store. They have an attestation provider. iOS, they have an attestation provider within the App Store as well. So kind of depending on which one you're using, you're going to want to look at the different attestation providers. But in this series of videos, we are not going to be talking about mobile apps. We are going to be talking about our actual web page using reCAPTCHA. Now with that, when we're looking at AppCheck, the way that we are going to kind of define our data flow, we're going to pretty much in our graphic say, hey, we're going from AppCheck to functions. Well, that's like, there's technicality on handshakes and everything else, but I'm not going over, into protocols and everything else. This is just this series of videos is actual use case, writing code to use it. So I'm just keeping the graphic simple. But just to point that out, right, I'm acknowledging that the way it really works is AppCheck really looks at the client and says, if you want to make a request, do some hocus pocus with your attestation provider, get a token from them, and then you make the call to the function. And the function is already configured to expect that token, right? So there's a lot of handshaking stuff that we're just not going to get into, right? So our graphics are pretty much going to represent going from our client into our functions, right? So this is just the workflow, because I don't want to deal with handshakes and protocols, because that's not what this video is about. The video series is really about implementing this stuff, right? And then we're going to look at the actual N8N webhook from our function and integrating our JWT token in there for some additional security on our N8N as well, right? So if somebody does find, and eventually somebody has it in mind to find your URL to your webhook, they're gonna. But here, at least we have some additional security, right? There's no harm in having an additional security layer, especially if it doesn't really impact your performance at all. So this is kind of the whole thing that we're going to be going over and looking at in this series. So I just wanted to put that introduction out, and from here, go ahead and check out part 1, where we dive into some of the client development and move forward from there. So anyways, that's the series of videos that we're going to be putting together, and we will see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.